It was one of those evenings where the sky seemed to be on fire, melting from gold into deep violet, as if the world itself was holding its breath. You know, the kind where every second feels like a memory even before it happens. Her laughter floated through the wind, soft, hesitant, with a crack in it that made my chest tighten. I glanced at her as I steered the car down the coastal road, the sea stretching endlessly to our left, restless and glittering, like a mirror of the way I felt about her. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, but the breeze had other plans, tossing it across her face. Her eyes caught mine for a moment, full of that quiet, unspoken sadness I had tried to ignore. We were almost there, almost at the end of the drive, almost at the edge of something neither of us wanted to name. And then she turned to me, voice barely above the hum of the tires on asphalt. "I don't want this ride to end." It hit me like a stone in the chest, heavier than any words she had said before. And I knew she wasn't just talking about the road. Before we go further, if this story is already pulling at something inside you, pause for a second, hit the like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness for more stories that linger long after you've heard them. We had met in the most ordinary way imaginable. Two strangers trapped in the university library during a blackout. The lights went out, leaving only the glow of our phone screens. I remember her asking, "Do you think they'll fix it soon?" And I couldn't stop laughing, nervously, like a fool trying to fill the silence. "Not before our grades die," I joked, though I wasn't entirely joking. That night led to coffee. Coffee led to walks under the streetlights. Walks led to late-night drives where the quiet between us felt heavier than any conversation and somehow more alive, come full than words. And before I even realized it, she became the one person whose absence reverberated louder than any sound in my life. There was always something in her eyes, though something fragile, like she was running from a shadow that still had its hand on her shoulder. I never asked. Maybe I was afraid of the answer. Maybe I thought that if I didn't name it, it couldn't shatter what we had. Our thing, as she called it, was never officially defined. She never called me hers, and I never pressed her to. We just existed in that delicate, invisible space between almost and forever. And for a long time, that was enough. Until one evening, it wasn't. It was the last week before she was set to leave for another city. Some new job, some new chapter that had no room for me. She hadn't said it out loud, but her silence was beginning to sound like goodbye. So I sent the message anyway. One last drive. Her reply came almost instantly. "Pick me up at 7. That evening, I drove through roads that had once carried our laughter like a soundtrack. But now, every familiar turn felt heavier, each curve loaded with the weight of what was about to end. She sat beside me, quiet, fingers tracing invisible patterns on the window, as if trying to map the moment before it disappeared. The sun sank lower, spilling oranges and pinks across the horizon, painting the world in a bittersweet glow. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. The music played softly, a song about staying even when leaving was inevitable, and it pressed against my chest with every note. When I stopped at the old lookout point, she didn't move. She didn't get out. She gazed at the horizon, eyes catching the last glimmer of the sea below, like they were trying to hold onto something slipping away. "It's beautiful," she murmured. I didn't even think. "So are you," I whispered before I could stop myself. She gave a faint, fragile smile, but her voice shook. "Don't say things like that. You'll make this harder. Then don't make it the end," I pleaded, my heart hammering. Stay, we can make this work. I'll come visit, or move. Whatever it takes. Her silence was louder than words. The wind stirred, carrying the sharp salt of the ocean and something else, something inevitable. Finally, she spoke, her voice quivering. You don't understand. It's not about where I'm going. It's about what I can't leave behind. I stared at her, trying to read the unspoken story in her eyes. She looked down, tears shimmering like starlight. I lost someone before I met you. Someone I thought I'd spend forever with. Since then, I can't promise forever to anyone, not even you. I had no words. The air between us became fragile, stretched thin like glass. And then she placed her hand on mine, trembling, and smiled through her tears. But this ride, it's the happiest I've been in a long time. We sat there, the car humming quietly, the sky now swallowed by stars. Time itself seemed to pause, unwilling to move forward. When I finally turned the key and started the engine again, she rested her head against my shoulder. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful, almost sacred. The road stretched ahead, long, winding, and achingly beautiful. Each mile carried us closer and yet further away, like the pull of the tide. She began to hum softly an old tune from the first night we met, and I didn't dare interrupt, letting it hang in the air like a promise that words could never capture. And just as the city lights began to shimmer on the horizon, she whispered, I don't want this ride to end. My chest tightened instantly. I knew she wasn't asking for more time on the road. She was asking for something impossible to stay suspended in that moment forever, caught between what was and what could never be. So I slowed the car. The world outside melted into streaks of gold and shadow, every turn blurring together. I wanted to freeze it, to never reach that final bend where reality would demand its due. But eventually, the car came to a stop. Her apartment lights glowed softly ahead. She turned to me, eyes shimmering under the dashboard glow. Thank you, she whispered. For what? I asked, my voice catching. For making me feel like love didn't end with him. Then she leaned in, slow, gentle, trembling. The kiss wasn't asking for. Merit was a goodbye, cloaked in gratitude. She pulled away, stepped out of the car, and walked a few steps before turning back. That same soft, fragile smile broke across her face. Take care of yourself, okay? And just like that, she was gone. Before we close this chapter, if this story touched you, pause for a second, like, comment, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness. Every story here is a whisper of the emotions we all carry but rarely voice. It's been 2 years since that night. I still take that road sometimes, driving past the lookout point where we once watched the sunset. I still hear her voice in the wind, still see her shadow in the rearview mirror when the world feels too heavy, and sometimes, just as I'm about to reach home, I find myself slowing down at that exact spot where she whispered those words. I don't want this ride to end. That's when I realize she never truly left. Because real love doesn't vanish when the ride ends. It lingers in the air, in the songs you play, in the quiet way you keep driving even when the seat beside you is empty. So I keep going, not because she's gone, but because she taught me that some rides aren't meant to end. They just take new roads.